Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Jeff, did you have a packet from last time? Yeah, you got the rest go. Okay, great. Okay, we're gonna go into part 2 of buyer conversion. Those that were here last week, what did we cover last week? What was some of our major things?
Learning bias.
Yes. Christina. Yes, yes,
We talked about value proposition,
okay,
about core beliefs,
okay.
talking about the 5-step process.
Okay. Dialogue, 5-step process, we kind of briefly mentioned that. We did not go into detail at all regarding that. Okay, what else did we talk about? Show like a pro. Showing like a pro, we talked about some of that, yep. So a lot of that ties into this one right here, right? Because this was a big thing, the 7 vital responsibilities that we have regarding buyers. So we kind of went through all of this and made sure that we have that kind of locked down. Right? We have a process for that we use. Buyer and seller process sheets in your drive. So we talked about that. We're going to start today when we get going here talking about the 47 vital buyer activities. What goes under those and how many of those we're familiar with, how many of those we're currently doing, how many of these things maybe we need to add to our process or maybe refine. Okay. But before we get started, Marisha, why are you here this morning?
For me, more of my open house skills.
Okay, to be able to convert more of the people that come to your open houses. And we have spent some time talking about that because it's in our dialogue, right? It's in what we say, how we say it, the ability to justify our value, to get people to meet with us, okay? Terry?
Similarly, I feel like I have really good rapport with people at the open houses, but then 2 things. Overcoming my own thoughts, the preconceived thoughts that I have when reaching out to them, and then also just a better way to, along with the conversations, just a better way to communicate with them about setting up a meeting and waiting for that.
Okay. And yeah, getting the meeting set is important, but then it's also really important to have then that process that every buyer moves into.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to be winging it every time I get a buyer, doing it a little differently this time. It's like, no, they all move into the same funnel, into the same process. Okay. I know last couple weeks we've been talking a lot about dialogue. Have you guys used any of your dialogue on open houses with clients or potential clients? No.
Yes.
So we tried.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and how did it go?
I think it goes, for me, I think it goes very well. I've
Okay.
started incorporating some different ways to say things.
Okay.
How do you feel about the home after they're done viewing it? Bring something for them to take home that really, so I printed out that wants and needs worksheet, and I forgot to do it at yours, but the one I had on Sunday, I had a stack with them and I passed them out to people, and they really seem to appreciate that.
Okay. So how can we make sure we don't forget it again in the future?
Oh, I have it in my open house
Yeah,
box.
your process, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Yeah, the big thing is when you're using that dialogue, don't try it for the first time you get the open house. You better have had it practiced and buttoned up before you get there, otherwise you end up fumbling all over yourself. Right, and if I got me, I'm gonna break it down, so that's where that practice has to come in, okay? All right, yeah.
I'm here so that I get in better habits, so I don't screw up a sign call like I did last night.
No.
Guy called my
Okay.
listing and asked about the number of bedrooms and bathrooms and then the price, and he was just. It wasn't what he was looking for, so he said, okay, well, thank you, all right, well, thank you for calling, I did not. I didn't know better than that, and I just absolutely
Yeah.
the ball dropped, so I texted him back and I apologized and I said, hey. You know, there are other houses and I said,
Yeah.
on the other houses, I can represent you and your best interests and. If this one's not the one for you, I said, I can help you, you're not working with another agent. You know, let me know, I'm glad to help you. It still showed delivered, doesn't show red, yeah, so.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, yeah.
All right, well, at least we recognize it, right? Like, I mean, here's a goal.
As soon as I got it home. So, yeah,
Okay, but again, to your point, it's like we gotta be prepared ahead of time.
yeah,
It's not just gonna come to you in the moment, it's like
I was distracted and doing other things and did,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
anyway.
that would make us be able to get that on back.
Yeah.
Joe, why are you here this morning?
Here so I can learn as much as I can, have a great routine, have a nice, great, comeback for every, objection, well. And definitely have a system where it's pretty much natural when I present myself and, you know, ready for all the questions, especially a lot of general questions as well. I can just get up and look in the eye and be excited to answer the things.
Okay.
Okay. My confidence up. So yeah, that always good.
So we won't necessarily deal with many objections, maybe a couple, however, to your point of just knowing your own process and knowing everything you're doing will give you a lot of the answers to those objections.
Yeah.
Right? So then having that seamless process. Okay, Sarah?
Hang on, so let's get back from the work through.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, so any of that, okay, Christina?
This to come in on my strategies again, just to make sure that I'm understanding if my communication skills, but my buyers are saying, and how to have those, conversations, eagerly rather than
Okay.
thinking later on, like, oh, shoot, I should have said that.
Yeah.
Because we're in a different market than we were when I
Sure.
started.
Yeah.
So I need to.
Okay. So how many of you have conversations with clients or potential clients and you get done with the conversation, you don't feel very good about it? Everybody's not. Okay, yeah. If we're honest, we all probably feel that way a little bit early on, but we want to get beyond that, right? Now, we never want to stop evaluating people. We never want to stop evaluating our conversation, right? Like that's gonna be an ongoing thing throughout your career. We're constantly getting better, but I want you guys to be very confident where I can go to an open house and every conversation I have, I come away like, good conversation. We're going to the next step with these and these other ones and things will follow up. I don't want you walking away from an open house being like, man, every one of my conversations could have gone better. So that's why we got this, okay? That's why we do what we do. Do you have a packet? Okay. Robert, how about you? Why are you here?
Confidence and internalizing my process to, like Joe said, I'm sure that it's just second nature, roll into it without any doubts or hesitation.
Okay. That's a big thing, guys, knowing that process. Can't stress enough how important it is, right? And we've got it built for you in the higher process. You guys gotta go in and tweak it, make it your own, okay? Nicole, you just walked in with a lot of your,
Cause I'm doing finding the know everything.
that's your name, you know, okay. Is it possible to know everything?
No.
No. It's not possible. Okay. However, we can teach you the things you do need to know. Because we can use no do have, because I only need to know how much, this much for this strategy, right, so on and so. So today we're on vital buyer activities. I think seller conversion probably took us, what, six classes to get through. This one is very likely gonna be the same. We are now on part 2, which is what page is that? Page 8 in your books. So there's 47 vital buyer activities, and we're gonna go through these today. So number 1 is what? Finding buyers, face to face, phone calls, mail, email, etc. And they throw some examples. Is anybody having problems with their pillars? I think we spent a lot of time teaching on these, so I'm hoping we don't, but if we do, now would be the time to discuss some of that, because step number 1 is I have to find the buyer. If I'm not finding buyers, so I can't convert anybody. So the question is, do you have enough in place that's putting you in opportunities daily? For sure weekly, but preferably daily. Every day, are you putting yourself in a position to be having conversations First and foremost, with your SOI, and your schedule should be doing that for you, correct? You look at it on every day I'm in conversation, I'm sending note cards, I'm doing my pop buys, I'm doing my business, you know, all of that stuff is happening, okay? And then beyond that, what are your other pillars? And are they getting you in contact with enough people? That's what we need to think about, especially if I'm a newer agent, all right? If I go all week and I've only talked to 2 new people I didn't already know, how healthy is my business? Probably not very healthy. It's gonna take me forever to generate a potential client from that, so I have to examine that. How effective am I at putting myself in a position to talk to, again, SOI people and new people? Because that's what it's all about. It all begins with the conversations, right? Well, the conversations never happen if I don't put myself in a position to have the conversation, okay? That's where the other pillars come in, so your open houses. Well, are we sort of prospecting that open house to get more conversations? Am I, you know, what are my other pillars? Am I working for sale by owners? Am I working expires? What other pillars are you working until you get that massive SOI bill? What other pillars are you working to ensure that every single week you are getting enough conversations to move your business forward? Okay, so that's step number 1 is finding the buyers. That comes down to your pillars and your activities. So it's a good time to do a little evaluation. How's my business? How is the health of my business? Am I getting enough conversations? Because if I go all week, like I said, I've only got 2 new conversations, that's a problem, right? That's gonna be a problem for my business. I'm not gonna survive. Activity number 2, meet in the office. And what I would just say about that is have a consultation. Every buyer that you're gonna work with, do they get a consultation?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, they should. Now, is it possible that I will meet them the first time out in the field somewhere, such as a Zillow call or something like that? That's very possible. Okay, very, very possible. Maybe it's that sign call that Jeff just bombed, right? We don't know, okay? But it's like, I will give them that freebie. I'll give them that freebie. Because I want to get out in front of them, and the way I behave, the way I speak, the way I do the showing is different than anyone else I've ever seen. And they agreed to meet with me, okay? But every single buyer, your goal should be moving them into a consultation. Where do we do these consultations?
I did want it there on the big.
Maybe Panera, Aldi's,
Okay.
Starbucks.
Okay, the key is there's a lot of different places that it could be, right? Well, is Texas Roadhouse a good place?
Oh,
No.
no.
Why not?
Too loud.
I can't even hear myself thinking there, okay, so I do need to be thinking about that. Where's probably the most ideal place? Oh, maybe coffee place. I like the office. The office has always been my favorite place to get people to come and meet with me, but I've had some people hesitant on that. And it's like, no problem. I've met people at Panera. I met somebody at McDonald's. Wasn't my first choice, but I was like, okay, that's where you want to go. Okay, I've done that, but I would say really the office and getting them into a conference room to me is an ideal situation. That's the beginning of my process. Okay. Do you generally go meet an attorney at McDonald's? No. Probably not. Maybe the doctor is gonna bring your x-rays out and talk about your upcoming procedure, and they put it up in Panera and they start. Is that generally what we see? Probably not, okay, so there is something about professionalism when it comes to, let's invite you into my office, okay? But again, I'm happy to do it somewhere else if we can't agree upon the office. Get on the selling channel, what does that mean?
Mindset.
Yeah, it's your mindset. You ever walk into either a listing appointment or a buyer consultation, and your mind is firing all over the place?
I'm talking myself up every step on the way up to the door, just to make sure that.
I'm fine with that because that's getting you in the right mindset, okay? But if stuff is blowing up on other deals, or you're stressed about this, or you're anxious about this, something's going on at home, like all of that stuff cannot go with you into that consultation room. You just can't, okay? You have to be able to separate yourself from that for that 45 or 60 minutes. Is that easy? Not always. You may have something serious going on, but it's like, I've got to get off of that into this channel, Okay, so, and we'll talk more about some of these steps, especially some of these big steps when we get into the 5 parts, okay? So we have the buyer conversation. We're gonna begin that by building some rapport. How do we build rapport with people?
5 Fs.
The 5 Fs, yes, that works, okay? What else? What's another acronym that we use a lot for
Or,
Ford? What does that stand for? Did it? You're right on. What is the D? Dream. Yeah, family, occupation, recreation, dream. So that is the way that we can build rapport. Building rapport is one of the areas that I've kind of struggled with. You guys didn't know? What do I disc at? I'm a very high D. What are the challenges with a high D when it comes to some rapport? Small talk is hard for me. Yeah, it's just like, that's hard. It's not that I don't care, like I'm a caring person, but if you're here to buy a house, I'm ready to just, let's get in there, let's just do it, let's move on. You come to me and start giving me a big long story, I'm kind of like, and I'm struggled with that, I recognize it, okay? And I'm transparent about it, but we do need to be able to build rapport, so we can use those acronyms to help us. Because I want to build rapport so that we start forming that relationship, right? Setting the tone. Now, we'll talk more about this later, but when I say set the tone, what does that mean? Those that have been with momentum long enough, anytime I'm talking about setting the tone, what am I saying?
Expectation.
Expectations, we'll get to that, yes, but an expectation of what? It's one of our core beliefs. So anytime I set a tone with the seller, yeah, you're looking at core values, okay, a core belief for momentum, okay? What is that? When I walk in and have a conversation with the seller and I set the tone. I walk in with a buyer and I'm setting the tone. What tone am I setting?
Win-win.
Thank you. Did you look ahead or did you?
No, I looked at.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's the tone that I'm setting, right? I want them to understand that we're looking for a win-win. And what is a win-win?
Both sides are pretty satisfied with the conditions, yes, you're making your clients, satisfied as well.
Okay, so for a buyer, what satisfies a buyer?
Good price, quick
Price,
action.
Okay, could be any other, yeah, it's really getting the house they want, wanting the house they get, right? Like, that's a win for the buyer. Okay? They get the house they want. Well, what's the win for the agent?
without any problems or headaches.
Okay, you guys are both thinking way too short term. And I never want to say I get paid, right? That's my win. Relationship, it's the relationship, advocate, right? Yeah. A win for me is that we go through this process and I walk away with an advocate who's gonna advocate for my business. That's the win for me. The commission or getting paid on it, well, that's just that's a byproduct of this win, okay? Is that you walk in with a buyer and say, I want you to get the house you want, and I want to get paid. How does that sound? Or you go, well, I don't know. It doesn't sound too good to me, right? Yeah, so remember, that's a win for us. Is to make this experience so phenomenal, so amazing that when we get done, they're like, whoa. That's really cool. That's how we set the tone, okay? Uncover the needs and wants. I think in your packet, you guys get to later, but there is a needs and wants sheet. Why is it important for me to uncover those?
We're gonna help the client make a better decision, make my own.
Okay, it's gonna help them make a better decision, Rachel. Yeah, that's it, keep them on track, all of that matters, we've talked about it before, right? You have a first time home buyer, they walk into that house that was just flipped, right? And what's their take? Who's and ahs, this is so beautiful, and you're like, doesn't have the space you need, doesn't have the yard you need, doesn't have this, right? So I have to know those things if I'm gonna truly be a consultant for them during those showings. Okay, because they're gonna gravitate potentially to some things like, nah, those weren't on our priority list. Once I establish what their needs and wants are, we must prioritize those. What is most important to you? Which ones would you be willing to give up if you got needs? So these are just things that I need to know and I need to be talking to them. What about verifying motivation? Yes, I need to do that. Why do I need to know that?
Because you're gonna be ready to go, and you need to make sure they're on the same team you are, as far as.
Okay,
You need to know the timeline.
Okay, is our time, yes, I need to know that they are in fact truly motivated, qualified, loyal, right, so I have to be MQL before I can work with them. But what is also important about that, so they say, yes, we're ready to go, okay, wonderful, we go out, we look at houses, I put them under contract. Why is it important for me to know that motivation?
One thing, never put much, so working through those, reminding them a lot.
Okay. Would everybody agree with that? You ever had a client, maybe you haven't yet, but you will, and you guys get stalled in a contract over a $500 termite treatment? Yep, been there, done that, okay? I need to know that motivation. Because if their motivation is for a job relocation or getting to a school district or whatever it is. Do you think that motivation is strong enough to overcome a $500 termite treatment? Probably, but sometimes I have to know that and bring them back then and say, look. Mr. and Mrs. Byron, obviously I'm advocating for you to get everything done that I can, however. Let's look at the big picture here. Are you willing to potentially walk away from this house, sacrifice this house? That's gonna meet all of these requirements that you had over this. And sometimes people just have to come back then, and I've had it in a home, yeah, you're right. Like this is getting petty, okay? So I really need to know what that motivation is. Check financial ability. That needs to happen during this conversation. How do I do that? What verbiage do I use for that? And I have to be a little bit careful on this one. What question am I gonna ask if we're talking about
As for the winter contact?
price range?
Are you talking about, do they have a job?
Okay, yeah,
I mean, you can't.
yeah, okay, I could ask that, you have a job, I don't know. Probably wouldn't go that route.
I discussed the cost that it's gonna be for inspection and all the, the fees that go in with it, and then I discussed what. They're expecting for earnest money deposit and how it needs to be paid within this time period. And then I let them know that you need to get in touch with your lender and be discussing what your monthly payment will be and what your closing costs are gonna be. On the table and 30 closing, and when you wanna close, when I start talking about contract, and I'll say, it depends on when you wanna close and how, when you're gonna have this money available to you.
Okay,
Closing and earnest money and for inspections.
okay, so we'll come back and say, Jeff, what did you have?
Well, and I don't know what point you're talking about jumping into this, but from the very beginning, I just simply say, are you gonna pay cash for finance this purchase? And if you're financing it, are you pre-approved?
Okay, so I'm really glad you brought that up because that's really the point right there. Everybody made an assumption that this person was getting along. Don't do that. That you will offend somebody. You never just ask them, "Are you pre-approved?" Or the first question is this: now, will you be paying cash on this transaction, or will you be seeking more? Right, like that's the question. Because I've given them the option to say, yes, I'm paying cash. If you just ask me you're pre-approved, you're gonna get somebody who gets their hackles up, they're gonna be like, son, I don't need to be pre-approved. I've got cash, like I apologize, just don't push something, will you be paying cash? Will you be seeking mortgage on this purchase, right? That's the question, so yes, Jeff, I agree. And then to Christina's point, as I'm going through the steps of the process. I do need to be making them aware of all of these out-of-pocket expenses. Because you guys remember during my value proposition to set the consultation, when I'm talking about steps of the process. What is my verbiage for that? You guys have heard me say it probably 1,000 times. And I'll keep saying it because it hasn't sunk in yet. But what do I say? How do I lay out the value of knowing the steps of the process? Because remember, I have 4 items of value I give them to justify the meeting. One of those is the steps of the process. Anybody? Okay, if you're looking at notes, it's not internalized, so I'm gonna give it to you. Do it. Yeah, that is one of the 4, okay? But when I talk about steps of the process, to Christina's point, I say, look, I understand you might have bought a home in the past, but it might have been a little while, or this could be your very first purchase. It's very important to me that we sit down and we cover the steps of the process, because I want you to know exactly what to expect, when to expect it, including in all out-of-pocket expenses you're gonna incur along the way. That's my verbiage. I'm setting that tone for, okay, when we meet, I'm gonna fill you in on everything you're gonna have to pay for. All of these expenses are gonna be laid out for you, to Christina's point, that's part of checking financial ability. Especially the first time home buyers, because they come in and they think, well, all I gotta do is have my down payment, right? It's like, no, that's not right, because why? We gotta cover inspections, we gotta cover the appraisal, we gotta talk about closing costs, right? In closing costs, when we present those to buyers, generally those are broken into two categories, correct? Because if I just tell a buyer like, hey, yeah, it's gonna be $7,000 in closing costs, they feel like somebody just shot them. Cause they're like, holy, like, where did all of that money come? Like, what is that? Well, as agents, I need to be able to explain to them what that is. Otherwise, they think they're just getting taken advantage of, right? So when we're talking about closing costs, we break it down into two categories, correct? To make it very easy. I think we have it in our package, but what are those two categories? They're different. We need to make sure a buyer understands those. What are they?
File fees and limit fees, one thing,
Okay, that's one side. No.
your mortgage or your insurance and taxes.
Prepaid. So I have prepaid items. So you understand, the buyer needs to understand, look, part of those closing costs, we call them, they're actually are prepaid items, okay? Which is gonna be what? A full year's worth of homeowners insurance. And then also they have to set up an escrow account, correct? So it's gonna be 2 to 3 months worth of what? Prorated insurance and prorated taxes. Can that make up a good chunk of money?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's thousands of dollars right there. So they need to understand, like, look, that's what this is for. It's for you setting up your escrow, paying for your insurance ahead of time. We gotta pay for it at closing, so there's this big chunk, so that's prepaid items. And then the other side is what, Sarah already alluded to this. Is lender and title fees, okay? There's gonna be a title insurance policy that the buyer has to pay for, correct? And who does that policy protect? Nope, the lender. Who provides the title insurance policy that covers the buyer? The seller. It's written into the contract. Seller provides one to protect buyer. Buyer pays for one to protect the lender. Okay? So there's all the title fees and the closing fees, the search fee, all of that stuff. On the loan side, we have what? Loan origination, we have processing, under all of those fees, okay? So make sure that you can explain those in a logical manner for buyers like, I understand. I see why it's $7,000 for me to buy this $200,000 house, okay? And be careful using, some agents will just say, well, it's gonna be roughly X percentage of the purchase. Be careful with that, because that is very purchase dependent. Depending on the price of the home, depending on what their taxes are, depending on what their insurance are, so be careful about just telling somebody, well, it'll be 3%. It might be. For a window of about $100,000 there maybe, so just be really careful with that, okay? But we need to be able to explain the closing costs when we're talking about financial ability. All right. Transition to roles and expectations. This is where you need to be able to review roles. What do you expect from your buyers? What was it? Family communication, I heard loyalty. What else? Why are you guys using high lists?
Oh, well,
That's okay, you can use it. Yeah, because I always required 3 things, right? You get 2 of them. Referrals when are, yeah, those were kind of mine, that you're welcome to use those, but I really want you guys to think through, like, what do you expect from your buyer? Now, could we break that down a whole lot more? Yes, because do we need to set expectations for during showings? Yeah, if you don't set expectations of how you're gonna do showings, you'll learn pretty quickly when you show up with a family of 6. And you open the door and you walk in, everybody goes. And you're like, like, what am I supposed to do here? So you learn quickly, set the expectation. If there's more than 2 or 3, everybody has to stay together, right? So yes, we set all those expectations. This is more of the 30,000 foot view, okay? Because during your conversation, you need to set expectations on how they behave during showings, how they behave during what? Inspections, appraisals, all the way through to closing. To me, the best place to do that is when we go through the steps of the process. Because during that steps of the process, it's gonna have on there that we begin looking at homes. So guys, when we go out and look at homes, this is what I need you to do. Don't be touching anything, you need to stay with me. If you have kids along, I love it, that's great. But they can't jump on other kids' beds and they have to stay with us the whole time, okay? Set those expectations. That way, if you show up to a showing and they brought in dad, mom, and some other people, and everybody wants to start separating, I can say, hey guys, remember how we talked about that previously? We need to just make sure as we go inside that we adhere to those rules, okay? If you don't set those expectations, now you end up looking kind of like a bad guy. Because you're there yelling at everybody to get together, and we still don't do that, right? So yeah, we have lots of places where we set expectations. What about our role? How do you define your role? If I was sitting across from you right now as a buyer, how do you define your role to me? What can I expect from you?
I tell them I try to be as professional as possible, but I allow open communication so it can be informal. And then, my communication, I tell them my hours when I'm available. However, it's alright to say they can text me and let me know that if they need something else, and then just kind of goes from there. And I change my goals is to get them to the home that they desire that meets all their needs. I tell them if they require certain communication a certain way, then I try to meet them so that I have people that are, if one of them works nights and one of them works days. So I understand that their communication is a little bit harder to them, and I just make myself more available.
Okay, so we're talking about being on communication. You guys cover that when you can reach me and when you can't. Yeah, and don't violate that. Because if you say, look, you can't reach me past 7, 8 o'clock, whatever it is, and I text you at 10 and you respond, I just violated. Here's the deal, is there ever an emergency at 10 o'clock PM in real estate that can't be handled the next morning? There really is, right? So it's like. Great, send me the text, that's fine, I'll respond as soon as I'm back working in the morning. Joe, what do you have there?
Say confidentiality, fiduciary.
Big one, confidentiality, yes, my fiduciary responsibility, yes. Those are part of my roles, what is my fiduciary? What do I owe a client?
Loyalty,
Accuracy. Okay, loyalty, accuracy, okay, yeah, what else?
What's
Honesty.
Honesty, okay, yes, honesty, what else? Fiduciary, what do I owe under fiduciary?
Within their financial,
respecting the laws and
That's
stuff.
a really big one, nobody's hit, what was it, sir?
their financial.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I mean, negotiating for them and.
Okay, negotiating on their behalf, using all my experience and.
Is it have to do with disclosure?
Thank you, there you go, yeah. Full disclosure on everything, to do with property, to sell everything I know, like that disclosure is a big deal. I never want a client to feel like they didn't tell them, because I know I owe you full disclosure, okay? Yes, they are my client, all right, so very good. So we have role, and then we need to agree on those roles and expectations. Because if we just put them out there and we don't gain an agreement, what does that benefit? Nothing. So how do I gain agreement on that? What does that look like?
In writing, I mean, I guess,
Okay,
I mean, verbal agreements and then, verbal, agency agreement as well.
okay, so whether signed or not, signing is a great option. I could have them sign it. Do we agree to this, that this is how we're gonna behave? Yes, I can do that. I can sign it. It's very important that they get to take a copy with them, for sure. It's in our packets, right? Here's our agreement now. What if they disagree with something that maybe is in my packet? What are we gonna do?
That's your process for a reason.
So if they wanna pick on one little part of my one of my expectations, I'm gonna kick them to the curb.
It would depend on what it is.
Negotiations.
Okay. Yeah, the question is, okay, well, yeah, why do you have a problem with me not responding after 8 o'clock? Like, let's talk about that. And to Robert's point, yeah, maybe they are unreasonable. And that started to unveil something like, ooh, you're actually crazy, like, maybe I don't wanna work with you. It's possible, but generally I just need a further understanding, right? Like, okay, what is it that is giving you a problem here? Or maybe we talk about it and they say they wanna add. Is it okay if they add an expectation? Within reason. Within reason, yeah, it depends on what they're wanting to add. We can absolutely, could I handwrite one in? Sure, right, we can absolutely do that. So just because that's your general one, that's what's laid out, does not mean you can't add to it. Okay, because we want to make sure that maybe they've had a bad experience with an agent before. And you're like, tell me about that, what happened? And they hit a couple key things like, what if we add those in? These are the expectations, I'm agreeing to
Do it before they have an opportunity and
Why not?
find out a little bit differently.
Yeah, why not? Because don't we always ask that, like if they've had experience with an agent before, especially sellers are really big in this, like. We know they had experience that was not good, do we not ask some probing questions? Sure we do, right, because we want to know, like, hey, tell me about your experience, what did you like, what did you not like? How did you feel about that, right, what do you want to see different this time? Because I want to provide that service to them, because I want to definitely stand out from the one in the past. So we want to make sure we agree, we want to close in on a working relationship. Okay, what does that mean?
Ask them if they're agreeable with everything you've already talked about.
What? They may be willing to sign with you right there. They may or may not, some of them may wanna think about it. Some people have a problem with that, and there's even some verbiage to overcome that, if they wanna think on it, but I've always been one that was so low pressure. That if they wanted time to think on it, I never had a problem. Other people would contradict and say, no, you need to get it signed right away. There's a time and a place. And judging on how it goes, they may be ready to say, I trust you, everything you've shown me today, yes, okay, perfect, sign it. Don't miss that, close me, sign, okay? But if there's some hesitancy, maybe we could have a little more conversation about it, and then I never had a problem letting them think on it. Because most of them ended up coming back to me. So again, you guys get to decide on how you want to do that, but I never came across this pushy. At all.
I even tell them that if they get in and go look at a few houses and you find out that we're not compatible, I'll cancel it. As soon as they're ready, as soon as they have to.
Yep.
Because it doesn't do you any good, it's no fun working with somebody that they don't like you or you don't like them.
Yep.
So you might as well come out of it.
Yeah, because that's not a win-win.
Exactly.
To continue to work with them would violate the tone that I set of a win-win relationship for both of us. Okay. Now, have things gotten a little bit different since August 17th of last year? Sure, it's a little different, right? You are requiring, like, I can't even go show a house without agency. But I can do one time, address specific, day specific, I can still do all that, right? But to Jeff's point, I always give a cancellation guarantee. But I did make one request of them, and I let them know, and I had that cancellation guarantee in the package so they could see it in black and white. Cancellation guarantee, but I made one request. I says, if you have an issue with the service I'm providing, I ask you to do what? Talk to me. Please make me aware of it, give me the opportunity to correct it. And if I cannot, 100% I'll cancel this. And if they didn't want to give me the opportunity, again, cancel it, but in my whole career, very rarely did I ever have to cancel a meeting. You provide a high enough level of service, they're not gonna be canceled on it. Okay? All right. So then, if they do agree, sign buyer representation agreement. Thank yous. Do you guys do thank yous after your appointments?
Yes.
Sarah, do I?
Getting better.
You're getting better, okay? Yes, thank you should go out now. Does it have to be a handwritten card? No, this day and age, it does not have to be. Can it be? Absolutely. Listing appointments for sure, because I for sure have their address, you know, I can send them a handwritten note. But could I also record a video and send it to them this day and age? Absolutely. People appreciate that. So I can do videos, but make sure that you are sending a thank you. And in the momentum, there's plenty of verbiage for notes and stuff on thank yous after visits, etc. But what am I trying to convey to them?
You appreciate. Yeah, but it's try to make go.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Absolutely, I value them, I appreciate them, I want them to feel that. Creating a buyer file. Who creates buyer files? Right.
Paper file.
Yeah, we kind of moved away from files per se. However, do you not have at least something like some process you put them in? Yes, for us, it would be our buyer process or our seller process. So when you see buyer file, that's what it means. Have you created a new tab for them in your buyer process, all digitally, right? And we're ready to go. Okay, that's creating a buyer file. Verify price range with lender. Why do we have that conversation? Buyers, liars. Buyers, liars, okay. Yep. Yeah, so we have found that is true, and sometimes it's not necessarily that they're liars, it's just maybe they have there's not a real clear picture of maybe what they can afford or what they should afford, so I might have a conversation with the lender, and that's why I like it to be one of our lenders if possible, one of our trusted lenders, like, hey, they're wanting to buy at $450, and lender's like, no, they're not, okay? So I kind of need to know that, like, what is their financial capability? And then the next thing to that is verify price ceiling with the buyer. What does that mean?
Their ceiling might be different than what they're ceiling.
Their ceiling is different,
It
Jeff?
almost always is, that's what they're comfortable with, because the buyer may say they're approved for 450, but maybe they don't like 450 payment, they don't feel comfortable, and you don't want them to have buyer remorse. First month they make.
Yeah. So that is a very important conversation, and sometimes I think maybe we're uncomfortable about it, but you do have to be willing to have that conversation with them, right? Because I don't want to go show them a bunch of $400,000 houses and spend 2 months, finally find the one they want, and they're like, oh, this is it. We go to write the contract, I write everything up, they're talking with the lender, and the lender says, okay, here's your estimated payment, and they're like, stop. Not gonna work. Have that conversation up front. Okay, you wanna buy 400,000? You can have the lender write, it's like, here's roughly what the payments are gonna be based on estimated taxes, interest. Are you okay with this $3,800 payment or whatever? Okay, Jeff?
And I think that right there is always been for me anyway, another perfect opportunity to create trust with the buyer. Because if you come in and you're showing them, hey, I don't want you to get into something, so what is your price, what do you feel comfortable with? And they're gonna trust you more, that you're not gonna try to sell them something just to get a higher commission. And it makes you kind of a good guy, and maybe the lender, the guy that you are not evil.
Yeah, no, 100%, it builds trust. Okay, because to just sell them a house because they're pre-approved for that would violate my win-win. If they were not comfortable with the payment. So is that part of your process during a conversation with them of, are you comfortable with this, right? Like, this is roughly the payment, because if you sell enough houses, you got a pretty good idea what payments are, right? Like if I told you, hey, I'm gonna buy a $200,000 house on FHA, you can pretty quickly in your head be like, do some math, okay, well, payment's gonna be roughly X. And if you can't do it, you can very quickly pull up a mortgage calculator, correct? You guys know what interest rates are right now, correct? Everybody, you guys look at that daily? Where do we find that?
I have an app.
Okay, what's the app called, if anybody doesn't have it?
That's
Mortgage News Daily, is that what you said, Mortgage News Daily, yes.
that's what.
Mortgage News Daily, the lenders themselves use it, like, you should have that app,
No one should know.
okay? It's free, you should look at it every morning as a realtor, it's like, okay, this is what the rates are doing. Okay, it'll tell you what prime is, so you'll see your conventionals, and you'll see what FHA is. You'll see what VA is, because what are we right now for FHA, 6.2? 6.37 is where you're at, okay? So that's helpful for me to know, if I'm just sitting down with the buyer and say, okay, now of course, credit score and all stuff can impact, but let's just say roughly 6.37 or 6.4. Could I come up with using a mortgage calculator, could I get a rough payment? Just like that, yes, right, so make sure you have an app or a place that you go, that you always use for your mortgage calculators, plug all that stuff in. Okay, make sure we're having that conversation. Place a client in database management. Flash touch program. That kind of depends on the level of our relationship here. Where are we putting this person? Old Trail. And then depending on kind of where they're at, you're putting the appropriate hashtags, okay? And then what was the other one place I told you to put them? We want Bold Trail, the CRM. Buyer, the process, sell the process, yes, that is correct, okay? That's where they go. Now, I'm gonna begin searching MLS and FISBO. This is why it's important to have an off-market inventory that we can check. Don't be one of the agents that just sits there and waits for MLS to spit something out. Part of my A-client activities every day is beating the bushes a little bit. Is there something that would work for my client? That maybe I'm not seeing. That could be coming soon, it can be FISBOs, it could be going back and looking at expireds or canceled over the last couple of years. Did they ever relist? If they didn't, is there a chance they might still want to sell? Maybe. Why wouldn't I reach out to them and say, hey, I know you had your house listed 18 months ago. Are you still interested in selling or have your plans changed? If they say, well, we're still thinking, I'm like, great, I got a buyer. Can we do a one-time showing? Can I bring them over? Maybe we can put a deal together, okay? So make sure you're doing that. I had something else. If you're nurturing, let's just say your B and C clients, where should their search alerts be set up at? Bold Trail, yeah. Bold Trail for your B's and C's. The moment they move over to A's, I like to have them on the MLS search. Because I can do the coming soons, I just have more control over it, that's how I did it, all right? Call listing agent to verify availability. The market's not quite as crazy as it was, so we're not having as big issues of houses selling before we get to see them. So that would definitely be something, because if I've got, 10 showings with 3 different clients today, I'm probably not gonna be able to get in touch with all those agents, okay? We do have a digital, alert system, so they should be sending out if they have offers, etc.
There's one exception, that's like Monday morning, if you got a buyer that wants to see some house on Monday morning, it's been on the market 3 days.
And you wanna see if it went under?
Yeah.
Now, a good listing agent should be updating MLS, correct, as far as the remark section. Because when you get an offer, like that should go into your remark section, right? Like the market's still hot enough, and you just put a note out there in there. I always put the little asterisks. Matter of fact, I just listed a house 2 weeks ago, did the same thing. First offer came in, so I wanted everybody to be aware. I put asterisks, we have an offer. Okay, put it in your broker bag, so because I don't want to have to be sitting there texting every individual agent, like, hey, so put it out there. That should just be part of your process. Okay. Prepare showing packages. What do you guys take with you on your showings? What does that look like? Okay, you're gonna kill a lot of trees.
I don't know, I'll let me go print off, the very first showing of like one house, I'll print out your thing, this goes, they just email it. It depends on, if I'm staying in launch.
Okay,
Yeah, it depends on the person though. I mean,
Okay.
if they're my first time home buyers and my first showing times, and I'm printing this out as disclosure for them and showing a concern I have, there's a concern. With the price range home that they're looking at.
Yeah.
That way I can show them my professionalism, that I know that I'm looking out for them prior to this going to look at these homes. So that they can trust me for the next round of the public hat.
sure. Yep, I have no problem with that. As long as your schedule will allow you to be able to do that, I'm good with it. At some point, you're gonna get to where, hopefully, like you got enough going on, and it's like, I don't have time to look at the disclosure. I have no problem with you doing it. I love that. It's a good process. But for me, I wouldn't pull the disclosure until they said, I'm interested in this house. Because I might have 18, 25 showings that day. It just kind of depends, how many buyers you're working with or sellers, okay? So it's like, okay, I can't look at each one. However, the moment they're interested in one, I can pull it digitally, right? I can review it quickly with them. To your point, like, okay, let's look at this. Like, you're really liking this house. Boom, here's the disclosure. Right, I can pull it up now and then we can see it. So I do it that way. But what else? So potential disclosure, I'm fine with that.
I print off the client's list from the MLS and then
Okay.
on the back of that, put it back in the printer again, and on the back of it, I've got a film that I print on there where it kind of leads them through different rooms and what to look for and places for the same notes on each room about what they like, what they didn't like.
Okay,
Because if you're looking at 6 or 8 houses in a day, sometimes they're gonna get confused, like, what house was that that had,
Kind of whatever together.
and they don't always use it, but I put it on there anyway for them, so.
Okay. So you have a pre-made template that goes on the back. I like that, okay?
Change the show that.
Absolutely.
I have a clipboard that I have been, where I get my clients so they can write on it.
Okay, yep. Okay, so yeah, very similar to what you guys, my process was, everybody got a Remax folder. 'Cause everybody likes a nice pretty folder, okay, so I just took them a folder, business card on the inside. On one side, well, what's a very important document that I will take. Do it, broker disclosure, yeah, Joe, what'd you say? Yeah, Mr. Broker disclosure, yeah, that one, cause that always went with me, my very first showing, because that's a requirement, right? Or if I have a consultation first, I give it the consultation, but we show up. Here's your folder, I want you to bring this with you on every showing that we're gonna do. Here's Missouri Broker Disclosure, I covered that with them. And then on the other side, I will always have the MLS client full. I printed that on every property and I put them in order that we were gonna show that day. And then behind it, similar to yours, I never thought about putting it on the back of the sheet. But then I had a sheet next to them that would have the address and then the place where they make their notes. So they had 2 sheets per house. I like the idea of doing it on the back.
Another thing I did one time, was, well, I always put the time, I write the time I'm looking at them, so they kind of, when they're in their car, they know what we got in.
Yeah.
But I had an out of town client, he was coming in, he was gonna be in charge of, what is it, the security at the airport,
Okay.
anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
TSA, yeah, and so he was from the San Francisco area. Had no clue where all these things were, he just had his houses to look at. So I had gone on to every house we looked at and did a map search of a GPS of
Mhm.
how many miles it was from
Okay.
that house to the airport. And
Yeah.
so he was like, wow, that was awesome, so.
Yeah. So sometimes little touches, like what Christina's mentioned, Jeff, those are big, those are impactful to people, right? Nobody else is taking the time to do this for me,
Yeah.
right? The only other thing I took was everybody got a personalized pin. I had pins with branded to me. And that's what they got. Here's your stuff, bring your folder every time we're going out. Because then on subsequent follow-up showings, all I had to do was bring what? The MLS sheet, and the note sheet.
I had to throw away over 100 EXP pins.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we bring. That's what we're prepping to go out and show with. Okay, so just have a process for that, what it looks like. Book your showings, yes, we all know how to do that. And it is nice, and you can put them all in, the broker bay will kind of chart them out for you, and you can kind of move them around, etc. as needed. Meet in the office, meeting number 2. That one, I'll be honest with you, I usually would meet them on site. I would generally say, but you could have a meeting at the office. What that means is meeting at the office before you head out to do your showings. One reason that they would recommend this is kind of back a while ago, who the client ride with. Yeah, they were riding with the realtor, right? Do we recommend that? No, why do we not recommend that?
Cause they're not gonna like my music.
Okay, I'm not gonna like some music, what else? Safety. Yeah, liability is a big one for sure. Okay, so as a brokerage, we take the stance, we do not want clients riding with. Okay, if it is your family member, I'll give you that one, but short of that. They have their cars, they have GPS, you should be meeting them on site, okay? Or they want to meet you, that's fine, and follow you, I have no problem with that, but please don't be putting people in your cars, okay? Our insurance is not like that these days. Review buyer needs, so before you go out, you're gonna have their list of expectation or needs and wants, right? You might go ahead and recap those with them. You're gonna explain your showing packet, here you go, here's broker disclosure, here's that, we get that. Do they have any initial questions? Answer those. We're gonna get in the car. We're gonna head out and we're gonna start moving home. Okay? When somebody gets done with a home tour and it's an absolute no. What do you guys do with the showing packet information?
I still keep them. That's vital information, so
Okay.
it's like with the
No, I mean for the clients. Yeah, we keep ours, right? Because I always kept them.
right, but I keep my notes, but because
Okay.
they keep on backing up they keep on sending me stuff that they've been looking, they got specific needs. I keep on getting the same things that we looked at 3 weeks ago, and it's like, hey,
Yeah.
here we are right here, we did this, this, and this, and you know, and it's also a good form for them, they've started taking notes on them now. You know, I showed up with their MLS sheet or the client view, and that's what they've got a file at home now. With specific notes in case we go back and revisit, and if, as they go under market, they toss them. You know, and then if they're the ones that they were kind of, you know, iffy on, we revisit, and if it's not physically, but if they look back at them and it's got the features, the majority of the features are accurate. Then, you know, it becomes a possibility, it moves around a little bit for this specific couple.
Okay, any other thoughts, any other things that you do?
I really only had a few buyers where we look at a lot, like usually it's. One showing their function.
Yeah, and that's okay, it's still the same thing, right? So I show them one today, one 5 days from now, what do we do with that MLS sheet? Goes in the floorboard. Goes in their floorboard, here's something that you can do, I've heard many people talk about it, have them rip it. Rip it right then and there, this house is a no. They actually kind of enjoy it, kind of fun, but like, well, we'll tear it up, right? Because why did they not want it? We learned it, we hate split interest. Perfect, rip the sheet. The next time they send me a split entry, move that sheet you ripped. Like, we eliminated that, right? So there's this mental component to it of, I'm ripping that sheet. You don't have to use that, but you could, be kind of fun. Okay. Where were we at? Yeah, we're touring homes, eventually we're gonna hopefully write an offer, we're gonna finalize that with them. Remember, is there a specific list of things you ask before writing an offer? Yes. Where do you find that list?
Tools.
In your head, tools, where at in the tool, if I'm,
Buyer.
where, the buyer process, thank you, if I'm a newer agent, I'm getting ready to write an offer. What I don't want you doing is calling and texting your client repeatedly. Well, we want to close with us, okay, thanks. When do you want to close? Okay, thanks. Oh, how much earnest money were we doing? Oh, okay, thanks. It's like, don't do that. There's nothing worse, it makes us look so unprofessional if I have to text them and ask them about different terms for the offer. Like, don't do that, and at that point, the client's thinking, wait a minute. Like, yeah, should you be handling this for a transaction for me? I'm starting to really worry you, okay? We don't do that, you go to your buyer process and it has them listed out there. Ask about this, ask about this, ask about this, so I can sit there and ask all those questions before I even sit down to write the offer. That way I'm not sitting there texting them, asking them things, okay? Because you want to shake a buyer's confidence, that can do it, okay? So we're gonna finalize what the offer is gonna be, write it up, etc. We're gonna send in the offer. We're out of time today, so we're gonna stop here on 23. Did we make it halfway? Almost halfway through the vital activity, okay? And we'll talk next time. Somebody remind me, we're on number 23. Yes.
Part time when you're prior to a consultation, you just gonna buy, why you fix.
You mean the whole process?
When I, like with you that came out in house,
Yes.
whenever you were 10, I wanted to look at a house with you, and you were to tell me why I should do a consult.
Yes, okay, so you're talking about my value. What videos might you all be able to find this on? There's a bunch of them now, but we're gonna do it again, okay, so. The question comes up, we have the conversation with them, and I like what question, if anybody needs to leave, go ahead. Okay, what process are you using, go out, find your next home, I've just been looking on Zillow. I can explain to them the dangers of just working with an agent or Zillow, right, potentially, alright? So,
Pretty easy.
huh?
Should be pretty.
Should be fairly easy, like, that's not the best process. For whatever reason you wanna go. And then we introduce agency, correct? Are you familiar with buyer agency and what a buyer's agent does for you? I can explain the benefits of that, the fiduciary responsibility, like why it's in their best interest. And then remember, I go to my recommendation to you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyers, and go back to your friends and family. And I highly recommend that you get referrals or recommendations for at least 2 or 3 agents, and then I think you need to sit down and you need to interview every one of them for the position of your buyer's agents. And as a bonus to you, because I like you, I'm even gonna give you the questions that you should ask them. Right? Because the questions they think they should ask are what?
How long
How long you been doing, how many houses have you sold? Junk questions, okay, those mean absolutely nothing. So what questions do we give them? Can that agent explain to you the state of the market, why it is the way that it is, and how it's gonna impact you as a buyer? Which is one of my value adds, by the way. You need to ask that agent, do they have a very intentional process to ensure that you get the price or the home that you want? Then what else? Talk to them about their mutual roles and expectations. All those are my value adds, right? So I'm just giving them those, and then what do I say from there?
That's not bad.
I heard that, was it? Oh, okay, and we'll get to that one, just saying, yeah, the question is, and if you'd allow me, I would love the opportunity to be one of the ones that you interview for the chance to be your buyer's agent. Because I have a very intentional process that I put all of my buyers through. In the beginning of that process is what I like to call buyer consultation. It usually takes 45 to 60 minutes. And during that consultation, we really want to cover 4 key items. The first thing we want to talk about is the state of the market, because you probably hear a lot of stuff on the news, you hear a lot of stuff on social media, and my experience is a lot of that is not very accurate. So I want to cut through some of that noise, and I want to explain to you what the market's doing, but more importantly, why it's doing it and how it's going to impact you as a buyer. Because as a full-time real estate agent, I keep my fingers on the pulse of Kansas City real estate, so I know exactly what's happening and why it's happening. And I want you to be an informed buyer as you enter this market. The next thing I want to cover with you is the steps of the process. To understand you might have bought a house in the past, but maybe it's been a while, or maybe this is your first home purchase. It's very important for me to know that you understand exactly what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. And I also want you to know any and all out-of-pocket expenses you're going to incur along the way. I also want to cover with you what I call mutual roles and expectations. I want to make sure that I know exactly what it is that you expect from me as your potential agent, but it's also very important that buyers understand what I expect from them. And then what's my final thing?
Time here.
Okay. Oh, yeah, maybe.
She's been hanging out with me too long.
We're gonna cover a detailed needs and wants analysis. I wanna know exactly what it is you're looking for. I don't wanna waste any of your time showing properties that don't match your needs and wants. Okay, so Mr. and Ms. Buyer, that's kind of my process. That's the beginning of it. Does this sound like it would be helpful to you? Never in my career did I ever have a buyer say, no, actually, no, I don't think so. Every single person I've talked to says, actually, that actually sounds really good. Nobody else has offered us that. I think we'd like to do that. Perfect. I've already gained that initial agreement, and then I can move in for the appointment. And I can give them multiple settings. Yeah, where would you like to meet? My office is a great place, but I am happy to buy you dinner at Panera, whatever it is. I'm available, Thursday at noon, or I'm available Friday at 4, give them some options, they'll lock an appointment. And if I set that stage right and I showed enough value, are they gonna show up?
Oh, yeah, especially if you throw it in there.
Even if I throw it in, okay? But that's the beginning of the process, right? And once I get the appointment, we move into that ultimate fan experience that we talked about. If they're coming to the office, Christina should be expecting them by name. I might even have a sign up on the door. I have the buyer package strategically placed on the table with the pins and the water bottle. It's this full experience. They're coming in, they're like, nobody else has done this for me. Everybody else just wanted to, tell me a little bit here and there and then set up an MLS search and go look at houses. That's what people wanted. That's what agents wanted to do with me. You're different. Do you think your conversion rates are gonna go up? Yes, 100%. I promise you that. And then not only do my conversion rates go up, but then their experience is enhanced. And once they close with me, now what do I have? I'm a raving fan. I don't have just a satisfied client that leaves me a review and says you were great, yay. I have a raving fan that's basically evangelical about me and wants to go out and tell everybody else. And then I start getting that referral train rolling. And then all I have to do is start staying top of mind with all these people. Enhance the relationship, strengthen relationships, and all of a sudden your business starts as one. Okay? I will beat this horse as long as it takes until you guys get it down, okay? Or some variation of that gives you guys high conversion, okay? Sarah, did that answer your question? Okay, perfect. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Remember where we're at, and then we will pick this up again at the next class.
Thank you.
My pleasure.